Yo, what is up, everybody? So let's go back again. Another chapter from the story titled Some Houses Bleed, written by Jacob Harris. Remember to use the links in the description below. Show love to the author. Like, comment, subscribe. Chapter 3. With the real estate market being hotter than it had been in years, Ferguson Realty's offices were busy with activity. The only time the realtors were given any chance to decompress was their lunch break. Jessie was at her desk eating a modest lunch of a ham sandwich and a bottle of water from a plain brown paper bag. One of the other realtors arrived at Jessie's desk with one of the largest smiles on her face. "Is it true?" asked the woman, whose name was Maria. "Is what true?" "The house. Did you really sell the Devil House?" "Do they really call it that? I mean, I know it had history, but the Devil House? Really? Wow, we've been trying to sell that for years, but no one in their right mind would go anywhere near it. Everyone from these parts has heard the stories." "Well, Mr. Martinez isn't from the area. Look, you're new in town, so you haven't heard the stories about the house like the rest of us. Growing up, all you ever heard was stay far away from that house. Parents even threatened to send their kids to live there if they ever got out of line. You better believe that straightened us out." "Well, what happened there?" "Well, it all started long ago, like in the 1800s, I think. An old lady named Agnes Weatherby used to live in that house, and she was one bad lady." "What did she do?" "Well, she wasn't always old. From what I've heard, when she was young, she was quite the looker, which made it very easy for her to lure men to her home. And once she got them in there, she did unspeakable things to them." "Like what?" "Didn't I say they were unspeakable? But your guess is as good as mine. I've heard she tortured the hell out of those men. They were supposedly sacrificed to the devil. That lady has some freaky stuff going on in that house." "Was she ever punished?" "That's the best part. They didn't arrest her and put her on trial. A bunch of the men from the town busted into her house in the middle of the night and hanged her, right there in the living room. She wasn't dying fast enough for them though, so they slit her open and let all her guts spill out." "Wow, that's gruesome." "Yeah, none of the men were ever held accountable for what they did. And why should they? They did a town a favor that night. They said when they came into her house, they found body parts everywhere, and pentagrams and other stuff written on the walls, the blood of her victims." Maria then checked her watch. I gotta get back to work, but congrats on selling that house." Jessie was more than a bit shaken by the horrific story she had just heard. All she could do was sit in silence. It was a beautiful day to be outside, so Ray took his front yard to do some much-needed yard work. The first job was to clear out the weeds that had built up over the years. Ray hadn't had the wherewithal to buy a weed killer or the proper tools, so he had no choice to pull the weeds by hand. You'd think the city would have maintained this place better. Like they wanted to, like the Addams family used to live here. A woman across the street pushing a baby stroller caught Ray's attention. When she looked at him, Ray gave her a friendly wave. "Hey, neighbor." An old woman with the purest of black eyes and pastiest of white skins was now looking out the living room and met eyes with the woman pushing the stroller. Wasting no time at all, the woman pushing the stroller began pushing her stroller as fast as she could until she was completely out of sight. Wow, town has some really rude people. Ray watched as something white and poofy began emerging from the bottom of his neighbor's fence. Eventually, out popped a very curious little dog. It showed far less fear than the stroller woman and began sniffing around Ray. "Hey, little guy, what are you doing here? Escape from your yard, do some exploring, huh?" The little dog began walking in a circle before coming to a stop and doing its business dangerously close to Ray. "Ugh, you little jerk," Ray said, immediately standing up to get out of harm's way. When the dog was finished, Ray picked him up and marched him to the neighbor's house. He rang the doorbell and waited, but no one ever answered. Lucky I'm a nice guy. Most people would have taken you for a car ride that you would have never come back from. Ray opened his back gate and gently put the dog down. "Alright, buddy, I'm going into town to buy some tools. Before I go, I'm gonna put a note on your owner's front door, letting them know that you're back here, okay?" The dog looked quizzically at Ray. "You have no idea what I'm saying, do you? Okay, well, when I get back, let's hope you're not here." Ray drove into town shortly after his one-sided conversation with the neighbor's dog. He stopped in at the local hardware store and quickly became the topic of every customer's conversation. It was obvious to Ray that everyone in the store was either staring at him or talking about him. To try to lighten the mood, Ray took a hold of a nearby shovel and made an ill-advised joke. It's a good shovel for burying a body?" By being indoors, Ray was sure he heard a cricket chirp. "Hey, you the guy who bought the old Weatherby place?" said the old man tending the register. "Yeah, that's right. Name's Ray. Nice to meet you." "Any reason in particular why you chose that house?" "Well, it was priced to move. That's for sure. It's all on a quiet street, great schools, and the finest neighbors I've ever come across." "You know the history of that house, right?" What history?" "Some very bad things happened in that house. Things I'm not all comfortable saying out loud." Every house has bad things happen in them. I once lived in a house where they used to make meth." "Other people have lived in that house before you. Not all of them lived long enough to get out before it was too late. They didn't believe the stories either. I bet they wish they had believed now." Look, this house is no different from any other house. Back at Ray's house, the fluffy white dog was waiting patiently for its owner. It hadn't a care in the world as it happily wagged its tail and stared intently at the black gate. But what the fluffy white dog didn't know was that something was watching it, and after that something exhaled deeply, it was quickly upon the dog forcing a most horrendous yelp to burst from it. Listening to the old man's tale at the hardware store did nothing to dampen Ray's good mood. He was holding the steering wheel with one hand and holding a cheeseburger in the other as he drove home. "What the?" said Ray as he approached his house. There was now a police car parked in the front and an officer talking to the neighbor, who was holding her fluffy white dog. "There he is, officer. Shoot him. Shoot him in the face." What's going on?" "Well, looks like someone did a number on your neighbor's dog," said a detective who went by the name Miller. "He left a note on my front door saying there's a surprise for you in the backyard. It wasn't the surprise I was expecting." "Ma'am, go back in your house. I'll be over in a minute to talk to you some more. Okay?" Looks like that house found the perfect new owner. I didn't do anything to that dog. I mean, yeah, it took a dump in my yard and it probably deserves some payback, but I would never do anything like that." "I believe you. Look, last time I was here, I didn't really get a chance to speak my mind because there were people from the neighborhood snooping around. I didn't want them to hear what I had to say. But there is something seriously wrong with this house." "Oh boy, not you too." "Look, I've been a cop in this town for over 15 years. So I'm not just some superstitious nutjob spreading rumors. I've been called to this house more times than I care to remember. And I've seen some really messed up things. Thank you for your concern, but I don't really buy into all that haunted house stuff. Look, I didn't want to do this, but you forced me. All those people that were murdered here back in the 1800s weren't the only people to die horrible deaths in this house. Since I've been on the force, we have pulled out 8 dead bodies from this place, and none of them died of old age. I mean, accidents happen, I guess, right? The last guy was pulled out of here, and he had his eyeballs pulled out of their sockets. The one before had over 100 slash marks all over his body. We've had to keep these deaths from the public. We pull the bodies out in the middle of the night, so no one knows what really happens here. The town found out, they'd probably form a mob and come burn this place to the ground. Take half the block with it. This house has claimed enough lives. Please don't let it claim another. Thank you, officer, but you have absolutely nothing to worry about. I can guarantee nothing bad is going to happen in this house." And with that, Ray took a large bite out of his burger. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end, chapter 3.